Online gambling, however, is not social. It's a very transactional experience. It's a very solo experience. If the streamer is playing this game, why can't I be part of it? Why can't I buy into it? Why can't I play? Crypto is much better than credit card, right? Like credit card, somebody could be betting with money they don't have.
Poly market absolutely exploded with its political predictive markets, but they were not the first people to do it. Today's guest, Nigel Eccles, founded a platform doing exactly that and then transitioned it into FanDuel, which became the largest daily fantasy sports site in the world. Well, now he's with us in crypto and is building a crypto-based casino. You guys don't want to miss this conversation. All the lessons that he learned from going up against legislators and regulators in the gambling industry that he's now bringing to crypto.
Let's go.
I want to start the conversation with something from your history, which is HubDub, because political prediction markets exploded during this last election cycle. Obviously, Poly Market became a mainstream name. It's a crypto native political prediction market site. A lot of people pointed to it as having either influence or being more accurate for the election results. And of course, their CEO's house was raided by the FBI immediately after the election. You had this idea 20 years ago.
That's right. Yeah. We launched HubDub, which is a prediction market we created in 2008, started 2008. An incredible year, 2008, just, because of the election market. Obviously, that was the year in which Obama sort of swept it. And it was great. And it was loads of engagement. The media loved it then, as they did today. The challenge we found, the reason FanDuel exists today is because prediction markets I kind of joke, it's a bit like the Christmas tree market. It's amazing in December, not so good in January. And that's a problem with prediction markets, is that people love them for elections, but the next, there's just not as, the next news story is just not nearly as important. And so off years are really bad. And so what we found is as soon as election happened, interest really dropped off. And so in early 2009, we pivoted to become FanDuel.
It's incredible that a political prediction market site became effectively the world-leading fantasy site for fantasy football, right?
Yeah,
and so, talk about the early days of FanDuel, I guess, a bit.
Yeah, they're both games of prediction. And so they have that sort of common root to it. The early days of FanDuel, FubDub was the star. Summer 2009, 2009, we launched FanDuel with we basically sort of went back to first principles and said, okay, this team, we're really good at building these sort of prediction games, but we need something where there's a real demand all year round, every year. When we looked at fantasy, we said, okay, this is a really interesting market, but there's something like 20-25 million people play it. But the games are very slow, take a long time. You start in September and you play all the way through to like December. You can't start during the start of the season. You have to have 9 or 10 friends to play with. It's kind of at the time you couldn't play on your phone. And so we sort of said, well, what if we could make it a lot faster and we could give real cash prizes and make it a mobile experience. And so that was the original product. And, we launched that in 2009. And then every year we really kind of scaled that business. They're like 3 to 5x year-on-year growth. And so we went from standing start to by about 2015, we were doing 150 million in revenue.
And so you had some unique challenges at FanDuel that my crypto listeners, which is all of my listeners, may find sort of, in line with things that we've seen in this industry. Obviously, you guys had the very largely publicized attempted merger with DraftKings. It was blocked by the FTC. Crypto people and anyone trying to be in tech in the last 4 years in this country knows how difficult it's been to do any sort of merger and acquisition. You went through that entire process. You were steering the ship as the CEO. Interesting experience.
So the sort of the precursor to that were the issues that we had in sort of 2015, 2016, when we had something that's very, very similar to what's happening in crypto. So number one, we had a fairly concerted media attack on the industry. So New York Times in particular, but a bunch of other publications suddenly decided this is terrible. This should not be allowed. This is clearly illegal gambling, which it wasn't. Clearly we were, defrauding users and just generally bad people. And so that was a fairly concerted attack. We then had a lot of attorney generals sort of pick up on that thread, mostly, on the Democrat side. So again, very like crypto. And they try to kick us out of a bunch of states like Illinois, Texas, New York. And in those states, we end up suing the attorney general, say, look, this is not, we want to go to court. And we also got investigated by, a litany of, the sort of ABCs of, federal agencies, again, under this idea that this was illegal gambling. And the objective really, I guess, was to try and, kill the industry. And we responded like twofold. One was we fought back. We said, no, if you want to go to court, we'll go to court. We feel good. This is a game of skill. Like the crypto industry is doing. But the second thing that we did that the crypto industry hasn't been as successful as doing is we got in front of legislators and said, look, people love playing fantasy sports. And they want, the attorney general in your state wants to shut it down. This is New York, Texas and stuff. We should write law. And we as companies want, we're happy to be regulated. We want consumers to be protected. So let's write laws that protect consumers, but also clarify that this is legal. And we did that. And we actually changed the law. We passed laws in 22 states in 2 years. So it was really incredible. And I'm actually very positive in crypto that we're doing good on the first one, fighting back, but the second one, which is, getting bills through Congress that sort of give the crypto industry a chance to sort of grow and evolve while protecting consumers. So that's kind of, but so we've been through that process and it worked well.
Well, the crypto industry has been in the spotlight, even on 60 Minutes this last week,
right,
for their manipulating of the political process, which I find obviously laughable. Apparently donating to candidates that you like now is manipulating election results, which is exactly how Wall Street and the pharmaceutical industry and everybody else on the planet with lobbyists has ever influenced.
Yeah, like it's when it's a candidate you do like, it's a contribution. When it's a candidate you don't like, it's manipulation. It's like that's kind of to be expected. Crypto is also new. It's also a sort of a younger, emergent technology, and so you're going to have pushback from the status quo. It's also very disruptive to banking. So, banking is highly hostile to crypto because, it's disruptive to them. So I think we expect that, but it's also, to me, in a way, I actually think crypto should start to become bipartisan because on the right, it's about freedom, right? Like, like if you're a Republican, you would be like, look, this is about freedom. Like people should be able to do whatever they want with their money. Why would the government should not be involved in this? But also it's kind of, on the left, which is like, you believe that people should have freedom to choose, what happens to their body or things like that. Like, surely you also believe that they should be able to do with their money. And you should be wary of big banks. You should give people a financial freedom. So I think in effect, in the longer term, it will appeal to both sides. But right now, it's obviously getting a lot more embraced on the Republican side.
I think at the core, it originally was embraced by both sides. And then it, like everything else, when it became large enough, became a political issue. And you just have very loud voices on the left that were very anti. The irony of like an Elizabeth Warren being the most anti-big bank person when, she's in bed with JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon, but being anti-big bank, but then also being anti-crypto, which is supposed to be the answer to somebody to opt out of that system. The irony is insane.
The hope I have on the left is that they're anti-crypto coalition didn't make any sense,
and
right?
It died.
And I don't think it. It was a very small army, and it just didn't. And the smarter people on the left, like Mark Cuban, like were being vociferous and kind of like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you go to war with a technology and something that's so popular with a sizable segment of the community that's actually not really didn't swing left or right, or actually at both sides. It seems so stupid. And, hopefully this election, they take that opportunity to go back and say, is this, is this really, do we want this to be our position in 2028? I just don't think so. I can't imagine 2028 one of their big positions is, and
It won't be.
I don't think so. So
that's it's the anti-crypto army of one, which is Elizabeth Warren, because Sherrod Brown's gone and Gensler's getting out, and and I think that was just the natural order of things. I think it became politically unpalatable to be anti-crypto. You don't gain any voters by being anti-crypto.
You don't get any, right?
Nothing.
Yeah. And that's it's funny, like, and then we find this in fantasy sports is politicians are very sensitive to two things. One is money, right? Like they do, like, if an industry say, well, we would obviously like to help you with your campaign, but the other is votes, right? And that's a good thing, right? We want them to be sensitive, say, well, even if somebody is willing to pay them a lot of money, they're like, well, this could cost me a lot of votes, and votes is more important than money. And so fantasy sports was incredibly popular. That's why we managed to get all those bills through, but so's crypto. And so I just think on both sides, we're going to see, not Warren, because she's in such a safe seat, it doesn't matter. But we see so many Democrats embracing it and saying, look, it's popular. Why the hell would I oppose it?
Yeah, I think that the winds have shifted permanently in crypto's favor. There'll be holdouts, but I agree with you. You're obviously a gambler at heart, right? I mean, you started political predictions, then moved on to daily fantasy sports. You're a self-proclaimed meme trader. You've got an NFT as your identity and avatar on Twitter, and you're now launching a betting platform, or have launched BetHog, which obviously accepts cryptocurrency, which is where we wanted to eventually arrive here in this conversation. So talk about what you're building, and then I guess we'll get more deeply into why crypto is integrated into that.
Yeah, so we're building like a crypto casino platform. And we're very focused on creating original content, original games. One of our big things that that I've looked at in the last year or so was just I thought it was very interesting that I think there was two things. One was that offline, and I've thought this for a long time, offline gaming is a naturally social experience, right? It's, you go to Vegas with friends, right? The idea of certainly for me, going to Vegas on my own is like a horrific experience. I've done it because I work in the industry, and it's no fun. Like, it's like, you go there, it's the loneliest place in the world. It's a very social experience. That's when gambling is the most fun. Online gambling, however, is not social. It's a very transactional experience. It's a very solo experience. And one of the interesting phenomena we've seen is that streaming is actually interjected a layer into gambling. So that's people on Twitch, on Kick, streaming, hanging out with, people that watch them. And it's very social. But the interesting thing is that the games themselves haven't changed. So the games that people are playing on Twitch, on Kick, are the typical 5-reel slot game. So that doesn't really make any sense to me. It's like, why aren't the games built for this format? And one way in which we would want to build it is actually make it much more interactive. Like, if the streamer is playing this game, why can't I be part of it? Why can't I buy into it? Why can't I play? And so none of the games at the moment allowed us to do that. And that's what we are doing, is we're investing in building titles that are more social and work much better for streamers, which is one of the biggest channels for crypto casinos right now.
And so is it only going to be crypto deposits?
So it'll be only crypto deposits. So we take deposits in Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT, and Solana. You deposit and you hold it in those currencies because obviously people want that exposure. We will add to that as we get more demand from other tokens. I think in time we're going to allow people to buy crypto and then deposit in the platform. But as an operator, operating in crypto is an amazing experience. So even like today, I was looking at it. DraftKings, which I think will do about $4 billion in revenue this year, will spend $500 million on payments. Right. Earlier this year, FanDuel said that they were spending 12.5% of revenue on payments. It's a nightmare as an operator because you've got the credit card companies taking at least 3%. Sometimes the taking more. You also are totally beholden to them. Also, things like chargebacks. If somebody comes in, loses a lot of money, next day says, you know what, go, I don't want to pay for that. They go to their credit card, and next thing you're actually having to challenge that, even though that clearly was that user, the credit card wasn't stolen. That's kind of the life of the operator, and it's really, really challenging. So crypto absolutely takes out all of those middlemen and allows the user to directly interact with the operator and takes out all of those costs.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, and I think can be applied to a lot of industries. Anywhere where there's payments, anywhere there's a third party in between.
Yeah.
This isn't just for gambling in that case.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one, I would argue, it's probably one of the biggest areas of success for crypto, but the least talked about. It's sort of not as sexy and interesting. Like, it's not like this kind of really interesting DeFi protocol. It's literally, the ability for someone to have money and to send that money to a provider. Everyone talks about buying coffee with crypto, which is a pretty bad use case, but being able to send $10,000 to somewhere instantly at almost no cost, that's actually where it's really interesting.
Being able to send $10 to somebody at almost no cost is also where it's interesting. You try wiring somebody $10 in Nigeria.
Yeah. Internationally, without all of the headache, it's from an operator perspective. I give the example to FanDuel and DraftKings. They are regulated onshore operators. BetHog is regulated but offshore, and we're operating in like 100 different countries, every one of which has different payment infrastructure. And so instead of us having to integrate 100 different payment stacks, we actually just have one, which is crypto.
Makes so much sense. So crypto casinos have existed for quite a while, right?
Yeah.
And most of them have been offshore. Who will this be available to? Who will be blocked from using it, at least for now? And what's going to be like wildly different about this from the ones that exist?
Yeah, so we geoblock the US, most of Western Europe. And so the areas we're focused on is Asia, Latin America. We also operate in Canada. The differences here is if you look at a lot of those casinos, the games look all the same. And the reason they look the same is because they are the same. Basically, most casinos, or nearly all casinos, use aggregators. They work with aggregators that bring in games from like 100 different providers. And then, so you'll have Pragmatic, Evolution. These are all these third-party providers. And so the games actually aren't that different. The casinos themselves are exactly the same. They basically buy their products from a third party, the same ones. With us, we're much more focused on building original games and content so that the user can just basically, will play the games with us because we're the only ones that carry it. And so we have some titles like Hogger, which is a unique game that can only be played on our site. You can't play it anywhere else. So that's where we're going to see a lot of investment in original titles.
That's really, really interesting. What I find more interesting, though, is who you've had to geo-block and why. Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know, why would you have to block the United States and Western Europe for now? Yeah. And then I want to get into whether you think that could change with administrative change in the United States.
Yeah, well, so it's not for the normal reasons in crypto. For normal reasons in crypto, normally you block the OFAC countries. That's like, North Korea, Iran, Russia. And you ban the US because it's got a highly litigious and the current administration overreaching. That I think changes broadly for crypto. For gaming, the reason you block the US is the US has got a regulated market and laws that means that offshore providers cannot provide games to people in the US. That won't change with the administration. The only way for us or any offshore operator to come onshore would be come and get regulated in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois. That is something that we definitely would love to do at some point, but it's at least probably 3 to 5 years out.
We're about to get, though, arguably more sensible regulation. Right. Things should free up for innovators, but is it just that it's gambling and it's crypto together? And so how much can you really hope for in the next year or two?
So it's different from the normal regulation that you see in crypto, which is the issue, and crypto does need that. But, so for example, for us to come onshore, let's just say New Jersey, which is probably one of the easiest states to come into in that there's available licenses, there's clear rules, and it's not it's not artificially restrictive like some other states say, well, you can only operate if you have a casino in this state. Obviously, that's very restrictive. New Jersey's more open, but we would need them to accept that we could take crypto instead of just taking fiat. At the moment, no regulator in the US allows existing operators to take deposits in crypto. So, which is, obviously crazy, right? It's like, there's like $4 trillion in this asset that, like a huge adoption of this. And they're like, no, you have to use credit card. You have to use, bank transfer. And actually it's interesting. Crypto is much better than credit card, right? Like credit card, somebody could be betting with money they don't have. In crypto, no one's sending you money that they don't have. They, by definition, they have it. Our view is this technology is much better. The regulators should be more open to this, but it's just going to take some time.
Will you eventually have crypto trading, do you think, as part of the platform?
Definitely would be interested. I think, there's obviously a very high overlap between, people who like casino type products and people who like to speculate. So yeah, in fact, I've been chatting to a couple of providers that potentially could sort of help us put it on. But yeah, I think that'd be a cool thing to have on the platform.
So how'd you fall down this rabbit hole and discover crypto as sort of the solution to these problems?
Yeah, I originally got into crypto in 2017. Like my background is I've been a consumer entrepreneur since about 2000. Where I joined my first startup in 2000, started my first company in 2007. In 2017, sort of learned about particularly Ethereum. Like I knew about Bitcoin before, but to me, and even to this day, I find Bitcoin a little boring. I'm like, oh, great, I buy it and it goes up, great. Like that's good, but I didn't find it I find the white paper really interesting. I thought it was a really fascinating technical solution to the double spend problem, but I couldn't build on it. I didn't see there was obvious products that you could extend from it. I still think it's brilliant, but I just intellectually I was like, okay, great. But Ethereum I felt was fascinating though, because it clearly, it was a world computer, it was a platform you could build products on. But in 2017, when I first got into it, I just realized it was not ready. It wasn't ready for us to build consumer applications. Arguably the first consumer application would have been something like CryptoKitties, which I thought was really cool, but just almost impossible to buy. Like very, very difficult to buy, very difficult to sell. So after the first sort of playing around with it, I didn't really spend much time on it until 2020. And then actually it was NFTs that got me back into it. And I'm like, okay, this is much better. You can actually buy them on a credit card. That's what got me back into the space. And since then I've been 100% focused on crypto.
Yeah, I mean, you've obviously fallen down the rabbit hole if you're describing yourself, as I said, as a meme coin trader and you have an NFT avatar. So yeah, let's talk about meme coins. What do you make of this more recent meme coin trend? We obviously had the first iteration with Doge and then the dog coins going crazy in the last cycle at the same time as NFTs. Now we have, let's call it an explosion. Millions of coins being launched on a daily basis. Pump.fun. How do you approach that market and how do you view it?
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating. As somebody who, and I follow meme coins quite closely and try to stay close to it. The thing that is often a mistake is when you see a new innovation, you go, oh, it's just a toy, it's trivial, it's not serious use of this technology. That's nearly always a mistake, because new innovations often look like toys and they become, huge, success stories. The second thing is, in consumer, the hardest thing to get is attention. And there's so many products that are built every year that get no attention and then fail and die. Meme coins have got ridiculous attention. And I've never seen a consumer product as quickly just like generate such attention. Someone can launch a meme coin within 24 hours. It has tens of thousands of owners and, just tons of attention on it. There's a number of ways I look at meme coins. I look at it as thinking, well, maybe this is the first version of an even more interesting technology. Maybe, we're seeing the first, the first instance of it as it gets more interesting and more complex. And then the other way I look at it is kind of the opposite. I think of it as, this is probably one of the best gambling products I've ever seen invented. Looking at it purely as, somebody who's been in the gaming industry for 20 years, here we have a betting product. We compare it with sports betting or casino or, lottery. Here's a product where someone could have a 10,000x return, right? Number one, that's good. Number two, EV or expected value. So if I go into the casino, my expected value in most games is about -3%. Sports betting, it's about -7%. If I'm playing parlays, it's -20%. For meme coins, I have no idea what it is. It might be positive, right? And it all depends when the market is. So that's another one. It's like, okay, potentially positive, which means that it also, and some of the things thirdly, I think is potentially a game of skill, right? Or it almost certainly is a game of skill.
There's definitely edge.
Yeah,
I mean, the
definitely
on-chain guys who understand when things are launching and are on top of that market certainly are going to destroy retail, for better or for worse.
And that becomes really interesting. And we see of some of the biggest booms in betting products, they're typically games of skill, like poker boom from 2003 till, I don't know, like 2015, like that sort of era, 2014, like just incredible boom. Daily fantasy sports, again, game of skill, incredible boom. Meme coins, I think similar, you're seeing it's a game of skill. It's potentially EV positive, which is even more crazy when giving these sort of life-changing types returns. So that as a betting product, I think it's perfect in itself. Oh, and then the last thing I'd mention on it is I've never seen a product create so much content around itself, right? So it creates community and content, which no betting product in history really has ever done it in the same way. That just like somebody launches a coin and then suddenly people are jumping on it, and then suddenly all of this content's getting created and it's creating its own marketing. And everyone who buys into it has an incentive for everyone else to buy into it. So they're promoting it. Again, that doesn't really happen in any other betting product. So, so that's the thing is like, and sometimes I look at it and think this maybe is the most perfect betting product I've ever seen. And then sometimes I look at it and go, maybe there's just an early iteration of something bigger. And I don't know which one it is.
I'm curious what that something bigger could be. A lot of the things you just described actually are reminiscent of how a lot of people would have described the NFT cycle before.
Right.
Yeah, different version, but same concept. You built this quick community. There was something for them to rally around. There was a hugely speculative aspect about it. It could also do 10,000 X's and before, but for some reason they didn't stick in the same way.
I think meme coins are a better version of NFT projects. Of community-based NFT projects, the ones we were trading in 21, I think they're purer and they're more honest. Like in 21, we had
just going to say they're more honest. You don't pretend it's some membership to the most hoity-toity club on the planet. You know exactly what you're getting.
Also, they're also in their best form are more decentralized. In that, NFT projects, they had this, like we just saw Artifact shutting down, like after, generating 300 million in revenue, did nothing for 2 years, and then they just shut it down. And you're like, okay, we don't want to go back to that. With meme coins, for all their failings, that's not happening. Like the money is not all accruing to some central entity who's going to do nothing for 2 years and then just say, actually, we're all good. We're retiring to our second homes in the Mediterranean. So I just think they're pure and more honest. Lots of issues with them, but I think they're a better form of NFT.
It's interesting. You have this sort of barbell. You got you're creating a company with crypto because it's a superior payment rail. It's more efficient. It's a better way to do things. And then the other side is like, we're not going to pretend we do anything. These are purely speculative gambling poker chips that if you play them right, you can make a ton of money on. Where's the in-between right now for crypto?
I don't know if there is an in-between. It's a really good question. And every time I've seen one of the problems with meme coins is meme coins becoming anything else is so much of their value is mimetic value. It's not utility. It's just this kind of like belief. And it's anytime anyone tries to sort of go, and we're going to deliver value, suddenly you introduce reality to its valuation. And suddenly you're like, it's kind of like, the NFT days where, you paid like $50,000 for this NFT, and then they're like, hey, now you're going to get your utility. Here's a crappy hoodie. And then you're like, huh, the utility is this crappy hoodie. Maybe this NFT is not worth 50,000. Whereas like that to me is like, and I've seen when I've looked at, projects, like there's projects I know in crypto that are valued like almost like a value stock, just like incredibly undervalued, and they have no mimetic value, right? And then you're like, well, could they, like, would mimetic value help them? And I'm not sure if they will. I don't know if it's, we've either go to like its utility, it's just purely based on, like the financial analyst could look at their cash flows and stuff. And then there's the ones in the other end, which are these mimetic value. There's no way to value them. And there doesn't seem to be, the middle ground is a bit of a wasteland.
Do you have a concept for which crypto people are most likely to use on your platform? I would imagine that even though you're going to accept, I think, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, stable coins I would venture that people are less likely to part with their Bitcoin for gambling than they would with perhaps Solana, because maybe people who are in Solana are used to trading meme coins.
Yeah, it's good question. It's still very early for us to like draw conclusions, and I'm quite aligned with Solana, and so I think that's driven most of our deposits. And some of our games only work in Solana, and so the biggest one we're getting at the moment is Solana. Historically, with crypto casinos, actually Bitcoin has been one of the biggest. So if you look at stake.com or some of the big operators, stake would be like, or Bitcoin would be one of their biggest ones. Just because it's the most valuable one. But I think Solana is one of the fastest growing as people adopt it. The other thing I'd say is that there surprisingly isn't much overlap between, say, the crypto community, like crypto Twitter, and the casino vertical. It's almost seemed like they're just they use the same technology, but they don't really look at each other. Like I would argue that Stake.com is probably the most successful crypto consumer app today. Like they've already done over 12 billion in deposits, and probably like 3 or 4 billion in revenue. And how often do you see that on crypto Twitter? Like never.
You never see that. You never see them mentioned unless it's like one of their rare kind of sponsorship deals. But you see them on F1 cars.
Yeah, if they're sponsored or they get hacked, like that'll get mentioned. But it's a totally different like demo.
Why do you think that is? Because you would think that the crypto Twitter is largely, a self-proclaimed degen crowd that's flipping meme coins around. I'm not talking. I think there's bifurcations. There's guys who have millions of followers with memes I've never seen. I have millions of followers for a podcast they've never seen me. There's NFT influencers I've never heard of. I think we do. It's not just one thing anymore. But still, you would think that if they're doing, tens of billions in deposits, that would be a pretty frequent.
I think one of the reasons is that most people in crypto or crypto Twitter view their crypto activity as EV positive activity. They don't view it as entertainment. Bizarrely, even though they would probably lose money on, some of them are, but like they view it as, so they think of themselves more like a poker player than they think of themselves as like a slots player. And so stake is just not interesting because nearly all of the games on stake are EV negative, right? They're, if you go and play it, you expect to have less money than when you started. And I think that certainly in crypto Twitter, it's full of people who all think they're smarter than the next person. And so they have no interest in that product. So that's
player versus player, not player versus casino.
Correct. That's right. If they're like, oh, it's a standard 1% takeout, then they're like, well, I can't make money on that. So why is that interesting?
That makes a lot of sense, but I'm still surprised that there's that much money out there being deposited in crypto and it's that quiet.
That's right.
It just shows you how many absolute monster whales there are out there in the world that are not part of the public community, which shouldn't surprise you, I guess, but.
Well, it is even within the way I think about it, it is still like really surprising. Like this should be absolutely a poster child of like, this is what crypto can do, in that it solves a massive problem, which is payments. And here's a really good example of one that it's very successful.
I mean, Polymarket got all of the attention, and that was
Polymarket
simply because you could just do it in crypto and became this killer crypto app. And that's not even a drop in the bucket versus what Stake's doing.
The thing about, and Polymarket did a great job, and that team is really executing. But in a lot of ways, they didn't really do anything new. Like prediction markets have been around for about 20 years. What they did is said, we're going to take crypto. And suddenly it became really easy to fund it. And that's when that's when it just kind of like turned into a rocket ship.
I mean, listen, you had HubDub, you were probably just too early. I mean, that's the answer. It's like, I mean, Uber type apps existed before iPhones, didn't work very well until people got iPhones.
Yeah, like with HubDub,
the ideas.
We launched before even Bitcoin launched. So like we had no way of, we just couldn't have taken money. Yeah, that's a really big issue that, you see with Polymarket, but we've seen with Stake is that because they can take money, you can build really big businesses.
Are you, having been here since about 2017, I think I started in crypto in 2016. I'm far from an OG. Are you surprised at how far it's come in this amount of time? It seems we've seen it just on a rocket ship of late, obviously fueled by the election and regime change and ETFs and all of these things. But sometimes I do pinch myself and say, like, why am I seeing a Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana ticker on CNBC?
Right. Yeah. I guess I'm a little surprised how far it's come, but I'm also surprised how far it hasn't come, right? Like it feels to me that crypto has continued to fail major narratives, right? Like, even to go back at the start, like Bitcoin was supposed to be cash. Like we were supposed to be paying people in Bitcoin and we just don't. It was supposed to be used for remittances. It really isn't. Like USDT is being used for remittances. Tron is being used for remittances. It was supposed to be, companies were supposed to put in their treasuries, and outside of, MicroStrategy, like almost none are doing it. And I think it's ended its final narrative, which is it's digital gold. And I think that one, it will pass on it. It is in effect. But to me, digital gold is kind of like when you feel everything else, and you still have lots of value, you're digital gold, right? You just sort of like, it doesn't really do anything, but it stores value. Great, that's digital gold. When I look at beyond Bitcoin, and I look at the 2021 narratives, like think about them. NFTs, we were going to revolutionize online clubs. We were going to have, Web3 games. We were going to have, it was
Metaverse. Nothing bigger than the metaverse. Come on, we were running around with no legs, buying $2 million mansions next to Snoop Dogg in the sandbox or whatever, and
and we failed all of those. Like Web3 games today, virtually non-existent. Like one of the crazy stat that I saw recently is the biggest, one of the biggest games today in Web3 gaming by MAU is Axie Infinity. But still, right? And so that's kind of stunning to me. We don't, wallets are still incredibly hard to use. Like I was helping somebody, a friend of mine is an airline pilot, and I was helping him stake some Solana. And he has crypto, he's bought it, no problem. He's even put it in a wallet. And I'm like, and I end up saying to him, look, it's easy. And he said, that's like me saying it's easy to fly a Boeing. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fair. And I had to walk him through it. And I'm like, why is this stuff so hard in 2024? Still, right? Like, why? Like, even a simple one with wallets that I find insane is that we expect a user to be able to set up a self-custody wallet that distinguishes between a wallet, like having like $20, $50, $100 in your wallet, and your entire life savings.
Bank accounts.
And bank accounts, right? And things that are really protected. And the wallet treats them exactly the same. And like, yes, you go get a ledger and then you have to go figure all that out. I just don't understand why wallets are not like more siloed. So like there's one wallet, which is, this is a wallet, if you lose your money, then it's like, it's not a big deal. Here's another thing, which is, we don't call a wallet.
It's a safety deposit box, man, or like that. Yeah.
It's a vault, and we don't let the vault interact with the wider world. We only let it maybe interact with, or the vault interact with your wallet, not with the wider world, because it has to be kept totally safe. And we don't let you as a user go and do stupid things with the vault. So that to me, and I just don't understand why we haven't designed those in the last 3-4 years, because it all seems possible to me, but that's So, and then just lots of other infrastructure stuff that, particularly in the Ethereum ecosystem, I just see more infra on infra on infra. And I'm like, who's going to use all of this stuff? Like, I'm like, what about having better wallets, having, easier like money transfer? Like, these are things that, users are going to care about. The infra on infra on infra just kills me
So you're not a big fan of layer 1s, 2s, 3s, 7s, 12s, 47s. I guess that's probably why you like Solana.
Yeah, so I like Solana. For like in 2021, there was no alternative, right? Like there was like, if you wanted to build consumer applications,
you did on Ethereum.
You built it on Solana. I'd say today you can now build on L2s, and I do think it's weird. I think the best L2 is Base. This one that's got most consumer adoption. I do think it's absolutely bizarre that if you're building on Ethereum, the best option is to build on a completely centralized option, which is Base, or not completely centralized, but like as centralized as you can get. I think that's weird. I think it's still too early to say whether the L2 approach is a mistake or not. What I don't think with L2s is we're not going to have thousands of L2s. I think we're going to have 2 or 3, and I think they're going to be fairly dominant. And I think each one of those is going to act in their own economic interest, and they're not going to interoperate with the other L2s. I think that's the fantasy, that we're going to have 1,000 L2s and they're all going to play nice with each other. That's not going to happen. Just on basic, like, if I build an L2 and I'm dominant, I don't want to play with those other guys. And then if I'm the small guy, I want to play with the big guys. But I just don't see that happening.
It's still capitalism.
Yeah, it's still capitalism. And we actually see that today. It's like, oh, Base is increasing its dominance, right? Like, we're not even seeing a clear number 2 in the market. And so, like, I think that's really good for Base. And I think that's really good for anybody else who becomes a dominant L2. Is that good for Ethereum? I don't know. And I genuinely don't know. I'm not.
The jury's out.
Yeah, I think the jury's out. And I think that to me personally, I would find it very difficult to hold much ETH, because the future success scenario for me with Ethereum is we have 1 or 2 L2s that do really well. What does that mean for Ethereum? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, and becoming more consensus that all of this can't exist. We don't need this much block space, and it can't all work. But I do think that we'll still see some success stories on Ethereum for sure.
Yeah, and I definitely, I'm, personally, I'm excited about Mega ETH. I think that's potentially interesting. The only thing is, I will say, is that I think it's getting harder and harder to launch a new L2 or L1. I think Solana, when it launched, like when it was competing with Ethereum in 2021, 22, it had a 100x improvement, and it was really hard for Solana to compete, because you're saying you have to bridge your assets over here. If you're launching now particularly as a new L1, like a Monad or a Berachain, I'm like, is your argument that you're like 2x better than Solana? Like, I just don't know if anyone cares at that point. It's like, well, I'm going to need like a big step up on what I have today, because if I go over there, I have none of the infrastructure, you have none of the users. If I'm an application developer, like, why would I build there and not build here on Solana? And that's my biggest sort of question mark, which is, I think, as we've got much later, it's going to be so much harder to compete particularly in the consumer side.
So quickly before we finish, when are you going to be fully launched? What's that rollout going to look like? And what are your expectations? I guess, what are you most excited for after that happens?
Yeah, so we launched the product. It's into beta. It's like a public beta in last month. We had a strong launch. We are really kind of rapidly, we're launching a new game about 1 a month or 1 every 2 months. So we've got a quite rapid development. We're doing a lot of building around the, sort of the VIP scheme, and just improving the user experience. And so that's all happening concurrently at the moment. The thing I'm most excited about is the new games that we launch, particularly ones that are social. We also have some titles that are PvP. So there are ones that if you're skillful, you could win at them. So we're really interested in seeing those, and we really want next year to be about just launching new titles and getting traction with them, and seeing people get excited about them and continue to improve them.
So it sounds like the regulatory environment in the United States and all these changes really shouldn't affect you so dramatically. I mean, you're building a business. There's existing models for it. This is a better way to do it. So you're just going to compete by creating a better product.
That's right. Yeah. No, the change in the regulatory environment, I think, is sort of generally welcome, but it doesn't really affect our sort of day-to-day business.
I think that's really interesting, because that's not what you generally hear from people who are building in crypto these days, right?
Yeah, like one thing it does is and with price inflation, what you do is you get more people onto it, and so it's easy for us to convert users, and those users have more money, so that's good.
They have the wealth effect, or the wealth effect of the money they've made in crypto, and what am I going to do with this stuff? The same reason that like you see Bitcoin blow up, and then when it gets boring, all of a sudden all the other coins start to explode. Right. It's the same reason you see that same cycle. It's the same people who are going to come and say, I've got all this extra money, let's go play some games.
That's right. Yeah. So that's definitely true for us as a second order effect. But primary, it's kind of on us as a team to like get our heads down, focus on building really good titles, listen to your users, continue to optimize them. That's the focus.
Oh, I can't wait to play some of those games, Nigel. I appreciate it. So where can everybody follow you and keep up with what you're building after this?
So I'm Nigel Eccles on Twitter. It's NIGELECCLES. And then the product that we're building is BetHog. And you'll see it on Twitter, and it's bethog.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. You've been through like so many of the horror stories that the crypto industry has seen without actually being in the crypto industry. It's pretty impressive. I hope that if the battle ever comes to you again, you'll be willing to stand up and fight like you did at FanDuel.
Oh, thank you. Oh, absolutely.
Appreciate it, Nigel. Have a good one.
Let's go.